Today we're going to be working on my all-wheel drive, Pro Touring, LS-swapped 2nd Gen Chevy S10 that I have nicknamed the 2nd Gen Syclone. Now, before you hop down in the comments, yes, I realize that actual Cyclones and Typhoons had a turbocharged V6 under the hood, not a V8. But I don't like the sound of a V6. I want a V8, and it's my truck, so I can name it whatever I want. So the 2nd Gen Syclone LS swap is going to start today. Initially, if you've been watching this series from the beginning, you know that I wanted to install a 6.2 all-aluminum L92 from like an Escalade or a Denali. But unfortunately, they're a little bit on the pricey side. They're kind of hard to find, but I wanted one because the aluminum block is about 100 pounds less than an iron block LS, which is perfect for a truck that we want to have, handle really well. And also because they have the LS3 style cylinder head on them, they can make some awesome power naturally aspirated, which is the first phase of the build. Eventually, we will have forced induction to kind of help it live up to that name or nickname of Cyclone. But I don't have an L92, I have an LM7. It just so happens that over the winter when I was working on the 4-wheel drive big block drag truck, I purchased an 03 Silverado, that blue one, and I parted it out. And along the way, I acquired this. It's got like 170,000 miles on it. It ran pretty decent for the few minutes that I actually heard it run, but it's quite dirty and greasy because it has been in a truck its whole life. So today, here is the game plan. 1, we are going to get stripped down. 2, we are going to get it cleaned up. And 3, we are going to get it opened up to see if everything inside is in as good of condition as I hope it is. And if it is in that good of condition, we are going to install. Oh, and also if the Summit order shows up, we're going to throw a new camshaft in it because you can't do an engine swap and leave it stock. And basically by the end of the day, I want to have this cleaned up and ready to install into the S10. So let's jump right in. I did have someone comment in the last video asking about the Matco impacts and how I like them. I've had that one for, oh goodness, quite a while now, several years. And I don't use it as much as like, a technician say who's wrenching on cars every single day, but I do use it quite a bit. Batteries are several years old, still work great. I know a lot of guys use like the new Milwaukees, the new DeWalt's, but I can't complain. I don't have a lot to compare it against though. Oh, and one more thing I forgot. We have to repair. We have 2 of those broken off studs. 1 in each cylinder head. Caught most of it. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I cannot stand working on an engine that's oily and greasy and has leaks all over the place. Like, that just doesn't fly with me. If it's out of the vehicle, it's gonna get steam cleaned. I don't care if it's, a customer whatever vehicle, something that's old and boring, it's gonna get cleaned just the same as an engine that goes into a project. The only difference, I might paint that up to give it a little bit shinier look because even though, I mean, different truck obviously, but I want to pop the hood and have a nice looking engine. Don't mind the valve covers, those will get powder coated. But tangent aside, back to the 5.3. Here's the plan for today. We're going to get it tore down, get the cam pulled out, get an oil pump. All of our parts just showed up from Summit. I'll go over those a little bit later, but yeah, I really just want to get this thing opened up, take a look at the inside, make sure there's no major surprises. The only thing I'm not doing though, this is going to be more of a quick and easy quote unquote build. Cylinder heads are going to stay on. I'm not going to try to gap the rings. I'm not going to take everything apart just because for this power level, there's really no need to do that. Even if I slap a supercharger or a turbo on this 5.3, pretty much all the LSs with some miles on them that I've worked on have had plenty of ring gaps, so I'm not even worried about that. Even if I want to make 700 or 800 horsepower with this engine, I think it'll be just fine. So let's get it tore apart and see what's on the inside. Ooh, I like it. Nice and clean. There we go. So we got everything torn down, all the cleanup work is done, which I find oddly satisfying, like just using the parts washer, cleaning this stuff up. Like, I don't know why, but I really enjoy this because it's also neat and clean. Just look at it. So anyway, when we tore everything down, one of the things I was looking for is any sort of hidden damage inside the engine. And unfortunately, we did find a little bit, not a major deal. So I'll show you that. I'll show you some of the new parts that we're going to be putting back in. And I'm also going to have to hop online and order a few more things just to get this 5.3 kind of to where I'm going to call it like 100%. So the valve train, this is kind of where we have discovered some issues. And this is what a good rocker looks like. You can see that little cup right there where the push rod kind of goes in. And the push rod is supposed to have a nice, I don't know if it'll focus or not. Oh, there we go. It's supposed to have a nice round ball on the end, but if you look at the other side, I don't know how this will translate on camera, but that is worn really wonky. It's kind of more, it's like the push rod hasn't been spinning. And that has happened in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the rocker arms. Maybe that kind of illustrates it a little bit better. So not a huge deal. I think Summit has these rocker bodies for like 12 bucks a piece. So there's like $60 I got to spend. Push rods, you can buy a complete set. So I'm not super worried about it. So probably for another like 100, 150 bucks, we can get this thing put back together. And on the push rods, it's always a good idea to measure for length anyway when you're putting a different camshaft in. So realistically, I'm out like 60 bucks. So for a junkyard truck that I paid, I can't remember, I think I paid like somewhere around $2,000 for. I got the front clip, I got the rear, I got a bunch of stuff and an engine. I'm really happy. So anyway, new parts. We're just kind of doing some of the basic stuff. I'm not going nuts here. We've got a Summit cam. This is their stage 3 truck cam. It is, this is the specs here. So 222, 232 on a 112 lobe separation angle. To get that bad boy installed, we get some valve springs, we get some valve seals and kind of the bottom retainer, I guess. I do have a trunnion kit for the rockers, but I do obviously need a few new rockers. We get some valve keepers or retainers. New timing chain, new oil pump, and of course a new balancer bolt to hold the balancer on because those are torque to yield. And then down here we just got a bunch of gaskets and stuff so we can not have any more oil leaks. So first thing we're going to do is get the camshaft put back in. The engine's upside down just so the lifters kind of stay in their trays. Once the cam is in, we'll flip her upside down, we'll get some cleanup work done, and I'll put what tins on that I can. It probably would be a good idea to put all new lifters in this thing, but I didn't want to pull the heads. And I think if I would have pulled the heads, it would have turned into like a complete build, which I don't want to do right now. So we're going to call this perfect. Simple. Well, the table with all the new clean parts is becoming a little bit emptier, which means the engine is going back together. Now, a little side note here, the camshaft that we put in this engine is in the same camshaft that's in a Summit crate motor, a 5.3, that they rate at 450 horsepower. Although that crate motor does have a little bit more compression. Other than that, I think it's kind of the same thing that we're going for here. So with stock compression, I'm hoping maybe somewhere around 400 horsepower. That's of course at the flywheel. But I think that would be awesome for a fairly lightweight S10. And of course, when we add boost, those numbers are only going to go up. Basically right now it's just a cam and spring package. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be throwing a Trailblazer SS style intake on along with a 90mm throttle body. And then depending on how this fits in the S10, we may be building some custom headers as well, which I love fabrication projects, but that's a big one. Anyway, we're making pretty good progress today. This morning we got the valley cover back on with the new seals. I only have one knock sensor installed because the one that was back there is quite rusty. So I am going to get a new Delco knock sensor just to throw in under the intake. We've got our new valve springs, keepers, and seals installed. We got the broken off bolts extracted on both sides of the cylinder heads. We get the exhaust manifold flange cleaned up. Rear cover, new rear main seal is on. So pretty much this engine is going to be 100% leak free when it goes in, which that just makes me happy. And then I got that little oil barbell installed behind the rear cover, which will just help prevent any possible low oil pressure issues. I don't think it's a very common problem, it's more peace of mind, but this little plastic deal blocks oil flow, and the O-ring possibly could fail, or maybe just oil escapes around this end down here. But anyway, cheap peace of mind. Next, I'm going to move on to the rocker arms. I do have 5 new OEM rockers on the way that'll replace these 5 damaged ones. But for now, I'll get the stock trunnions pressed out because we do have a BTR trunnion kit, which we will press in. The 11 that we have now, I think the new rockers will be here, or the 5 rockers will be here tomorrow. And by that time, we can check for push rod length, order new appropriate length push rods if required, or if the stock ones are good enough, then we'll order some new stock ones. But we're moving right along with this 5.3. So let's continue on. All right, this is one of my favorite tools because I have done these trunnions in just about every LS that I've built, which isn't all that many, but kind of magnets into the vise, and it makes it a little bit easier to, let's see, you put that guy in there, and it has this guy here. I should just push out the stock trunnions. All that goes right in the trash. Oh, worth noting, a couple reasons why we actually do this upgrade. One, the stock trunnions can limit the travel, probably not at the range we're at, but you can see how they kind of stop there. Also, apparently these can fall out, and when they do fall out, you may be able to see all those little needle rollers in there. They just kind of, yeah, like that. That will wind up in your motor, which you don't want. All right, so next the oil pump should go on, but I didn't like something back here. The original cam retaining plate had a standard hole where the new one was countersunk. I didn't have the countersunk screws. So along with my 5 new rockers, I ordered from Summit the proper countersunk screws. So I'll just pull the cam off, put the proper screws in. Not that it's gonna actually make much difference, but it makes a difference up here. So we'll get it swapped out. By the way, this is the part number. This is BTR brand. GM offered the same thing, but they're like 3 or 4 times the cost. So these are like, I think $2 or $3 for an individual bolt. My motto, do it as right as you possibly can. So this is actually something Chris started in the shop, but anytime we're doing any sort of a timing job, we grab someone else and verify it. So what do you say, Chris? All right, so if it messes up, he's gonna have to fix it. All right, we've already established top dead center using a fancy piston stop here from Trick Flow. That is the part number. We are now gonna check the intake center line. So we need to find max lift on the intake. Thousandths before, which will go too far and then creep up on it so the chain is pulling in the right direction. It's always the hardest part to get it right on. Okay, that's 50 thousandths before peak lift. Now we roll through, find peak lift. And then we want 50 thousandths after. Oop, slow. Right there. The intake center line for this cam is 67 plus 146 divided by 2, 106.5. So this particular cam has 112 degree lobe separation with 5 degrees of advance built in. So if we do 112 minus 5, that gets us 107, where we recorded 106.5. So that means we're half a degree out, which is pretty much spot on. Well, another important lesson Pat always told me is the cam card doesn't tell you where it has to be. It just tells you where the cam is ground. You can advance it or retard it where you like, but what basically this means is the tolerance stack up between the chain and the sprockets, the crank pulley, or the crank sprocket is pretty much 0. So for what we're going for, 106.5 degree intake center line, I think is going to be great. All right, 3 feeler gauges. Try to center that gear in there. So last piece of the puzzle just arrived. We got our new set of push rods. I just grabbed all 16 because they're fairly inexpensive. They are the stock length. I checked the preload on a couple of cylinders and everything seems to check out, so nothing wrong with that. Approximately 3/4 of a turn. Should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 thousandths preload on lifters. They say that time flies when you're having fun. And just like that, another week is done. It's Friday afternoon, everybody's gone home, and we have what I think is a 400 horsepower at the crankshaft, 5.3 that's pretty much ready to drop in to our second gen Syclone project. Now, at 400 horsepower, the flywheel is like nothing to write home about. There's so many cars you can buy nowadays that have way more horsepower right off the showroom floor, but back when this S10 was brand new, 400 horsepower would be like awesome. And the other cool thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind is this engine would have normally been found in a vehicle sort of like this. In fact, it did come from the truck that donated the blue parts of the body for our four-wheel drive drag truck project. And 400 horsepower in a vehicle like that would be probably a fair amount of fun. It'd be pretty quick. But lightweight is the whole thing that prompted this project, because a couple years ago I built the LSA supercharged all-wheel drive single cab Silverado, and that was a ton of fun. I think it ran like a 12 teens in the quarter mile. Made 550 horse at the wheels on flex fuel. And that was just so much fun, but it was heavy. So I wanted to build something in the same vibe, but that weighed a lot less. And I think this, when it's all said and done, is gonna be somewhere around 3,800 to maybe like 4,200 pounds, which I think that's awesome. It's going to handle better. It'll accelerate quicker, and just overall be more fun. It'll stop better. But 400 horsepower is just stage one, because ultimately, whether I stick with this 5.3 or I find a 6.2 or do like a 408 stroker, whatever engine winds up in the S10 long run, it's going to have a power adder. I'm still kind of debating between like an LSA or a Magnuson or a turbocharger. I'd really love to do a turbo LS because, believe it or not, I've only actually ever done one turbo LS in my life, or for my own project. So I think it would be cool to do a turbo, especially considering the nickname I've given this of second gen Syclone. The Cyclones were a 4.3 V6 turbocharged, so a 5.3 V8 turboed I think would be a little bit cooler. But that's just kind of what we have to look forward to. It's going to be naturally aspirated for a little while. My first goal is just to get it in, get it running, and to make it to LS Fest this fall in September, which I think is a doable goal. We'll kind of play it by ear, but after that, the power level is just going to go up. Now, this engine project, though, was a little bit out of order, because initially I wanted to be doing the rear suspension in this video. At the beginning of the week, I didn't have any of the parts. Luckily, now everything has shown up, so in the next video you see about the S10, that's what we're going to be doing. A custom 3-link rear suspension. Excuse me, we just got all the parts in. We've got the bar stock, we've got the joints, we've got the brackets. I've got a tank full of argon for the welder, and next time we're going to town and we're getting the 3-link installed. So I'm really excited, really looking forward to it. And I think we're going to have a really cool, really unique, one-of-a-kind vehicle when we are done. Remember, I love building stuff that never existed, and an all-wheel drive, forced induction, 3-link suspension, extended cab, S10. To me, that's really cool. I I don't know, that's just me. I love old trucks. I love doing this stuff. So thank you guys for watching. Come back soon.